Today we have a very interesting topic. We are discussing adolescent mental illness and pulled in a couple of experts who are film producers and are writing, creating not only a short film but a documentary and possibly a book in the future. And I want to welcome Randy Silverman. Randy, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having us.
And Karina Rush, correct?
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you very much for having us.
You both are friends.
Yes,
That's
we
fabulous.
are.
Yes.
And you're both producers, creating films and going all over the world with film festivals.
Yes.
That's exciting.
It's been an exciting journey, an exciting last year for us, actually, since our short film came out and started gaining recognition and received a lot of nominations. And we traveled. Randy went to Spain, I went to England. We've been all over the United States. And it seems to be a topic that is interesting everyone.
That's amazing. And how did you come up with the idea of it's dealing with adolescent mental illness, and it's a 13-minute short film.
That's right.
Yes.
And entitled Illness.
Yes.
Right. And you're working now because of its popularity on a feature film called
That's
No
exactly
Letting
right.
Go. Right.
Correct.
And
yes.
you start filming this summer, I understand.
Yes, we're very excited
Isn't
about
it
that.
amazing? You know, working on
Yes.
creative projects and just watching them grow and take.
It's been
Take 'em on.
It's
Yeah.
been fascinating. This is actually my first foray into the film industry, and I got involved because I have a personal connection with the topic of mental illness. One of my children suffers from a mental illness, so I became involved with the short to kind of be the expert resident on set, and watching people's reaction in the audience when they see this film, and how much it hits people, and how much they want to talk about it really opened our eyes and really pleasantly surprised us, and it made us just realize that, you know what, this is a topic people need to start talking about. It needs to come out of the shadows, and we need to create community conversations and dialogue about it, and in order to break the stigma. And what better way to do that than by using the power of film?
Yeah.
So once we had all the success with the short, which is called Illness, we teamed up and collaborated with Jonathan Bukhari, who was the director of Illness and the writer, to write a full feature-length screenplay. And that film, which we're starting to shoot in June, is
How
called No
exciting.
Letting Go. Yeah.
That is
We're very excited.
fascinating. Fascinating. How do you fund a project like this?
Well, a part of our funding is in place, but marketing especially is where we want to emphasize and put more money in so that more people can see this film. So we have teamed up with Indiegogo, and we also have a fiscal sponsor from the Heart Productions, which is a nonprofit organization because of our topic. And so people can go to Indiegogo and search for our film, No Letting Go, and they can help us out to raise some more money for our marketing of the film.
Well, great, and such perfect timing, so thank you for coming in,
Yeah.
and I've been trying to do some of that marketing for you guys
Thank you.
myself.
Thank you.
And M&N has as well. You hit their
great.
website, you
Yeah,
know, so
great.
that's really fabulous.
Right.
What's been it like writing this film, you know? Was it difficult, or just did the ideas just flow?
Well, the first film, the short film, which is a 13-minute short, was written and directed by Jonathan Bukhari, and we had brought Randy in to help us to make the story real, to make the dialogue very believable. And we found out that this story wasn't just a story that was written by our first writer. It's really a story that encompasses millions of families out there. And then when we went and had such great feedback and we wanted to write the feature, we kind of all collaborated together. But it was really Randy and Jonathan who wrote the bulk of the feature.
And I understand you have 20 nominations and 3 awards around the world.
For the short film.
Yes.
For the
Yes,
short
yes,
film.
that's right.
Good
But
for you.
for No Letting Go, when Jonathan and I, we spent months writing, and for me, it really became my personal story. I mean, it's based on a fictional family that was portrayed in the short film Illness. But as we got into character development and storyline and dialogue, pretty much everything that we wrote really happened in my life.
Wow.
So it is based on my own true story and the story of my family.
Good for you to expose all of that. I would think it's very personal.
It was very painful to write. It really was. It was very painful to write. To reevaluate what had happened in our family and go through it again. And then I had my children read it. And I said, you know, it was very cathartic to write this, and if no one ever reads it, that's fine. We don't ever have to do this. And all of them, all three of them, I have three children, said, Mom, we have to tell this story.
That's wonderful.
People need to know that this is what it's like.
I would imagine it would be difficult for your other two children who weren't suffering from problems to deal with this.
Well, mental illness affects an entire family. I mean, it affects our whole society. But within a family, families tend to isolate. There's still such a big stigma about mental illness. And, you know, siblings are embarrassed, parents feel that it's their fault. And it can be just devastating to everyone in the family. And it was definitely hard, not only on my son, who suffered tremendously for years, but the other two sons, watching him suffer and not understanding why was he behaving that way, why was he doing those things.
I would think it would be difficult as a parent to want to have that mentally ill child in a household where it would influence, you know, maybe other challenging behavior on the other children.
It's painful because it's hard to know, well, who do I help? Who do I, you know,
Are they close in age?
They're fairly close in age, yeah. The first two are 21 months apart, and then my third is about 4 years younger, and it's my middle son who has suffered from mental illness. And we show that in No Letting Go. There's a lot of exploration in the film about how does this impact the siblings? How does this impact the younger sibling, the older sibling? How does this impact the family relationships, the husband and wife relationship? Because men and women just naturally look at it so differently. And so how do you, and if you're kind of dealing with this, now I never knew. I mean, I never knew a child could have a mental illness for no apparent reason. And so, you know, I was actually a lawyer, and, you know, I live in Westchester, and my husband was successful, and we had a nice home, and I didn't know. And so for years, as he was displaying symptoms, I just thought, well, either I'm doing something wrong as a parent, you know, I'm not a very good mother, or you know, oh, he must be, maybe he's being bullied at school. You know, you come up with all these reasons why your kid's acting a certain way.
Right.
So it's, you know, all of those themes are explored in the film. And what I have realized, because I'm very involved in support groups. In fact, I co-founded a support group in Westchester for families who have kids with mental illness, and all of the stories are the same, and we all share these same themes of marriage and siblings and education. How do you get the right support? So. We're hoping that the film brings that out.
I think that's why this film is so important, because it isn't, even though it's Randy's story and based off of her story, when we're talking to people, we're finding out that it's really everyone's story. Everyone knows someone who's affected by a mental disorder or a mental illness, and it's just, it grabs everyone. So we want to use the power of film to really get the film out there and really showcase what it's truly like. It's not a glamorized version of it. It's a raw version, but it's an honest version. Right. And that's the importance.
Right.
It's interesting because all of us have an aunt or an uncle or a sibling that's a little emotionally challenged. I've noticed working as a CPA, I'm dealing with a lot of adults who are suffering from depression, more as they get in their 40s and 50s. And now they're on a cocktail of medications, and it's very challenging for me as a professional to be dealing with someone who has a clouded mind, and I can't imagine what it would be like if a child's on medication. Do you recommend children to have be medicated?
What I recommend is that if something doesn't feel right, you get your child help. So you find treatment. You go to a doctor and you explore how to best treat. Now, some illnesses need medication, but it's a very, you know, people say, well, our kids are over medicated. Well, I don't know any parent who gives their child medication without torturing themselves first. And so, but if your child is so ill that they don't want to live anymore and they're 9, I mean, you're talking about your child's life. And if my child had cancer and they told me to give them chemotherapy, and chemotherapy might hurt them, well, that's what you do to save your child's life. So Is it always necessary? No. Do you have to consider it carefully? Yeah, the side effects like chemotherapy are tough. But sometimes you have to use a mix of medication with therapy, with proper environmental things in place, support, parent support, parent training, because it's hard to parent normally. It's hard to parent. But it's especially hard to parent when a child doesn't react in a way that a neurotypical kid would react.
How
So
do
it
you
makes it
keep your
hard.
spirits up dealing with a small child, dealing with it? Because now the child's older,
Yes,
right?
well,
Right?
my son is, he's 17, he's graduated from high school, he's
Like
well,
normal?
he's stable, he's a very talented
Congratulations.
photographer, and he's had years and years of treatment, and we were very lucky that we were able to get him help so young, and that he presented symptoms young. I mean, that wasn't lucky, but but good came out of that. It was hard, and there were years that I really grieved,
Yeah.
like I think any parent who has a child with any illness.
Yeah, because you would probably be in your 20s and 30s and dealing with some very serious issues.
Right, and it was very, very hard. But I think teaching, my son suffered primarily from depression and anxiety coupled with a mood disorder.
Gee.
Well, having a child who doesn't want to get out of bed and face the world makes you take the time to say, you can face every day, and all you need to do is face today. And you have to lead.
Oh, go ahead.
You have to lead by example.
Okay.
So I couldn't swallow myself in a hole
Yeah.
and then teach my son that he can't.
Right.
So you have to realize that if you can keep going. That
Did you think that your child was being bullied at school at first?
there was when he started having panic attacks and didn't want to go anywhere.
Or being sexually abused?
I thought something happened.
Yeah.
Something happened. What happened to him?
Yeah.
But that ended up not being the case. So
Wow. Through a trial and error that you found this?
well, it's lots of therapy,
Wow.
because of course, what do? You take your kid to see a therapist. If
See if
you're
they can identify.
why is my child behaving? You go to a therapist because why am I such a bad parent that my child's behaving this way? I mean, you try everything, and
But
you try everything.
I think you having arranged for your support group is a huge step forward for the whole area where she lives, and I hope that a lot of other parents maybe seeing our film eventually will go out and start similar support groups, because I think with the stigma gone eventually, it won't be so hard to get treatment, and it won't be so hard to talk about it. And I think what we're finding with first the short and now our feature is the more people start talking about it, the less scary it becomes. Because when you don't know what you're dealing with. So once people say, oh, my aunt, my uncle, oh, I forgot about my cousin, or it becomes about them, or it becomes about their children, then they're not ashamed anymore. They're not afraid anymore, because they've found a kindred spirit. And it's really, really important to have support groups.
And I never knew, right? I never knew a child could have these issues.
Right.
So, that's a very scary...
Because you would think that past the age of 2 or 5, that the developmental concerns would
right.
be over.
Right. And my son is an adorable, funny, gregarious, smart kid, very creative. So he didn't look, it's an invisible illness. He didn't look like there was anything wrong with him.
Well, we have a 1-minute trailer,
Oh,
right?
great. Love to see
For the
it.
short film, I believe, right?
Yes.
Great.
So if the control room can roll it in so the family our audience can see what we're all talking about. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
in.
you.
Sure. All those awards.
I am
Yes.
not
Congratulations.
getting out of
Thank
bed.
you.
Please, Henry. We have to do something about Timothy. I'm afraid we're losing him, Henry. I'm so scared. He's gonna do something even worse.
Jesse! Jesse, I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna hurt you! I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
What will you do if he hurts him? He needs help all the time. Please, Henry. Please. We have to do something.
Well, there we go. Wow.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to watch the first time around because I could only imagine, you know. Because I think every parent's concern would be to have a retarded child, you know, and then, you know, you find out that there's these hidden disorders.
And that's what it is. They're hidden.
And, you know, somebody told me that everybody does something to kind of self-medicate, whether it be, you know, alcohol or drugs or, you know, like we were talking about, there's people self-medicate through
Right.
other drugs. And I've noticed like a lot of parents who were drug addicts back in the 60s and the 70s that a lot of them have had children with some kind of mental disorder, rare form of autism. And so do you think that is, or within
Well,
the genes, or?
I think that statistically it's been shown that people who have some kind of mental health disorder self-medicate. So maybe those parents in the 60s were themselves self-medicating.
Oh, interesting.
They are sure now that mental illness is based on your biochemical foundation and that it's genetic. So you have a much higher chance of suffering from a mental illness if your parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles. It tends to run in families.
So if, say you had a parent that was an alcoholic,
Exactly.
right? But that would have an impact.
Absolutely.
And in fact, a lot of couples are intoxicated when they do conceive. So
And who knows what happened? Who knows what that does? Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
For
Yes,
children.
exactly.
yeah, I knew
Yeah,
somebody who said she's in her 50s now, and at the time that her mother was pregnant, she had a severe morning sickness, and she was given medication by the doctor.
Oh, right, there was
and
that.
as a result of that, she suffers from a lot of things because it was, I guess,
Right.
years later they
Right.
tested and found out a lot of her anxiety and issues
Right.
were related to these meds.
Well, and you never know. And the thing is, if you, the statistics are staggering. 1 in 5 children in our country suffer from a mental health
How
diagnosis.
many?
1 in 5.
Wow.
And to relate that to the most recent census, that's 15 million children. That's
a lot.
And most mental health disorders come out by the age of 14. 50% of all mental health disorders emerge by the age of 14, 75% by the age of 25. So in our country as a total, not to get all boring with statistics, there are 60 million Americans in our country every year that
Is it
suffer.
like 1 out of 5?
One out of 5.
Yeah.
1 out of 5.
I noticed that in my CPA practice too.
1 out of
Like
5.
an average 1 out of 5
Right.
was going to be difficult.
Right.
I could go through 10 great people, but I knew a couple of
Right.
troubled ones are going to come through.
Right.
You know?
And yet why don't we talk about it? Why don't we talk about it like we would asthma or diabetes or cancer or any of the other illnesses that can be treated or managed? And that's what we're trying to
Right.
help make a difference
Good.
in the way our society sees this, especially when it comes to children and families. Because if we can get children help early, maybe they won't self-medicate.
They might not commit suicide either.
And the suicide statistics are very alarming. Mental illness is the #1 disability in the world, according to the World Health Organization in the world. And yet, it doesn't. We can manage these illnesses. They can be treated, and we need to start as a society looking at it a little differently. So that's our
Well,
hope.
and I also think that with our film now, the timing is very appropriate because people are starting to talk about it more, but more on the adult side. Like there have been films out there now that have been commercially very successful,
Right.
but no films have dealt with really a child story, a true child story about mental illness, and that's or we're hoping that the people's minds have opened up a little bit, learning about adults with mental illnesses, and that we now can show them a story about
And a sympathetic story.
And
It's a sympathetic story. It's not a story of some evil kid.
And your
know.
child has outgrown this? Or?
No, he hasn't outgrown it, but he has managed it. He's learned to manage it.
Okay.
I think you do as you get older, your hormones balance, and it becomes it's so difficult with children because they don't present symptoms the same way adults do, and they grow and change every day. Once puberty's over, around the age of 16 or so, the emotions tend to balance out a little bit, and it becomes easier to treat. But my son's been worked very, very hard. He's worked very hard, and he's really my hero, because it's not easy to live with a brain that doesn't want to cooperate with you. And he's figured it out and how to manage it and have a productive, healthy, happy life. And I'm so proud of him. And this is really, in my mind, a tribute to him and what he's been able to accomplish.
That's really fabulous. And you do a lot of parent programs. And I saw with doing some research with you that you were a spokesperson for a marathon.
MHA?
Yeah, is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
Mental Health Association, MHA of Westchester, had a walk recently. And I helped to chair the walk, and that was actually 2 weeks ago, and they asked me to speak. So that was nice. And I'm actually doing a walk for NAMI of Westchester tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
In Rytown Park. That's where it is. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock to sort of, I think that the more people that talk and the more people get out there, the louder the noise, the more difference we can make. But and to your question about parenting programs, yes, I started a support group. We've had over 400 families come through our support group. And we use Illness, the short film, for educational purposes. We take it on the road for screenings, and we use that film as a vehicle for community conversations and open dialogue. You know, to have a discussion with a live audience is really great.
So how did you decide on what film festivals to submit this? Is it documentary?
No, it's actually a fictional, fictionalized narrative short. That's what they call it.
And what's the difference between that and a
documentary? Really follows real people using real names, real timeline, real, more interview style. That's more of a documentary. Whereas ours is like a movie, a 13-minute movie that you would see on the movie screen. So how did we decide where to go? Well, there's a certain website where you subscribe and you see all these festivals that come out around the world, and some of them have mental health awareness themes, or other illnesses, if you will. So a few of them we targeted, and then we entered a lot of festivals. Some were very conservative and not open to the idea of having a film in their festival that showed a boy with mental illness, and they didn't say that, of course. But then the ones that accepted us were so over the top, fabulous to be there, thankful that we had made the film, and that audiences in these festivals were coming up to us, some crying, shaking our hands, just saying that it was an amazing experience, because they felt, some of them, that they were seeing their childhood. They were seeing things that they had experienced, whether it be a sibling or themselves or a cousin, and they were like, we've never seen it portrayed so believably, like really very real and honest and truthful, and that's what we want to do with a feature as well. So.
I've worked with a gay synagogue here in the city, and so they've done so much, almost like a civil rights act for the gay community, and from that is also a study of mental illness. So that's another plight that they're doing. So really the great timing of bringing all of this in, because so many parents are dealing with their children that are transgendering, and
all of the emotional issues that are
because even
involved
when I was in a conservative town in the Midwest, we noticed odd behavior, or what we considered odd behavior, and people in it turns out that they were gay, but they didn't know it at that time.
Right.
You know, so this kind of it all with, I guess, the exploration of psychology too.
Right.
With the education and development.
Although I think also, mental illness in general can happen to anyone. It does people who go through those. It's a very stressful situation if you're in a community where you feel isolated or stigmatized, and that certainly can bring weird
that's something
or
that's
odd.
come out now too. I'm proud to be weird,
Yeah,
and
different
we're
is good. Different is good. Right. Exactly right. I feel that mental illness is kind of the last big taboo. And you know, we are out there talking about
Good for you.
transgender and gay communities and cancer, and this is, you know, this is
real
still
life.
this
Yeah.
is still
Yeah.
something people really
Yeah.
don't want to talk about. So we're just going to make them.
Well, we have about a minute and a half left to the show. Can you imagine that?
Oh, wow.
Went by so quickly.
I know, right? We could talk all afternoon, like we did before the show, too.
That's
right, that's right.
Parting words, any words of advice? Perhaps you, Randy, first.
Well, I think for parents, the most important advice I have is to follow your gut. Follow your gut. If something doesn't feel right, then it probably isn't. And don't be afraid to talk about it, because once I opened up my world and started talking about it, that's when I found out how many other people,
Interesting.
you know, and that's where the peer support
Yeah.
is really important.
Did you find that you lost a lot of friends during this time, too?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
I
Us,
lost
too.
a lot of friends, and then I reshaped my world, and then I gained even better friends.
Good for you.
Some friends were amazing and stuck by me, of course, but it's hard. You know, it's a tough topic.
20 seconds.
Yes, nolettinggomovie.com
Oh, there you go.
is our website. So if anyone wants to find out more about our project as we are going along, and it will also have links to the trailer for the short and what happened with the short and where we're going.
And our Indiegogo campaign.
And our Indiegogo, and Randy's fund.
Our contact information.
Yes, our contact
and-
information.
yes.
Everything is on www.nolettinggomovie.
No letting go movie.
No letting go
Yeah.
movie.
nolettinggomovie.com.
Well,
So-
congratulations, ladies.
Thank
and
you.
I wish you the best,
Thank
and
you.
always
Thank
stop
you.
back in
Well,
and
love
give us
to come
up your-
back after the film's made.
Yes,
right?
yes,
That would be
absolutely.
great.
Yay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you. It was
Thank
so
you.
pleasure.
So great
Pleasure.
to meet
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for having us. That's a reach.
All right, everyone. So thank you for joining us for this afternoon's show of Ginger New York.